Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Andrew Lees, and I'm here with my co-host, Clint McPherson. What's up, man?
Not much, brother. Just another week started. It's crazy Monday, right? All of us are probably busy.
Jumping right into it.
But let's go ahead and kick this thing off by welcoming our special guest, Ben Baker, to the show. How you doing, bro?
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, guys. It is a pleasure talking to you guys. You know, Monday is my favorite day. You never know what's going to come up. You never know what the possibilities are going to be on. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Monday is a good day to get, productive and just kind of jump into it and start tackling the week. So I agree with that. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, Ben. It's an honor to have you on. But before we get into our questions and, start going over some things, can you just tell our audience who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, I'm a storyteller. My job started off about 25 years ago, killing trees, starting off in the direct mail business. And it's very quickly evolved over the years to telling the story of the brand. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? Who do you do it for? Where are you going? And why do the people that you want to influence care? And I work with companies both inside their company, helping them with leadership development, and also externally helping them tell the story of their brand. So that's a little bit about me, but we can get into it from any angle you guys want.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's awesome. And with all that said, brother, as a podcast host yourself, right, a marketing and branding consultant, a professional speaker and author, can you take us back, me, Andrew, and our audience, to where your entrepreneurial journey started and what it is about entrepreneurship that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship started for me at a very early age. My father was an entrepreneur. He failed twice before he really succeeded. There was a company that you might have heard of, a small little company called IKEA. And my dad got the idea with a friend of his. A friend of hers was one of the senior vice presidents of IKEA and wanted to start a chain that was like IKEA, in the United States, and started in Seattle and Portland. We were living in Vancouver at the time. I'm still living in Vancouver. And they started up the thing and nobody bought it. It looked like an IKEA. The colors were different. The concept was same, the thing, and nobody in the 1970s would get the concept. Now they're everywhere. But what I learned was how to pick yourself up. How to pick yourself up, how to sit there and say, okay, what did we learn from this? What went well? What didn't go well? What were the lessons to be learned, and where do we go from here? So, I mean, I'm not even sure I was a teenager when this happened. So to learn that at a very young age, just to watch my dad, start something incredible, build this thing out, and then watch it, crumble underneath him and watch him get back up and do it all over again was probably the most exciting thing for me out there. Is to sit there and say, okay, there's not going to be a perfect path to success, but that path is well worth doing it in the end. So that's where entrepreneurship started for me.
I love it, man. It's like at a young age, you're introduced to how to pull yourself up by the bootstraps when you don't succeed right off the bat, right? Not always can you replicate or duplicate something and be successful. But even though that at the end of the day that you got to witness that firsthand as your dad being an entrepreneur, and then you coming right into it and just look, entrepreneurship is failure, right? You got to continue to learn how to get yourself. And some people don't view it as failure as long as you keep going, right? And that's a good way to look at it. You don't technically fail. You can call it a failure because that one plan, plan A or plan B didn't succeed. But man, you got the whole alphabet to play with. And so
failure happens when you give up.
Oh, I love it, man. I love what you said.
When you absolutely give up, when you sit there and say, okay, no mas, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to go out and get a job. That's when you fail at being an entrepreneur. When you pivot, when you move, when you reevaluate, when you reinvent, when you change what you're doing completely, but you keep moving forward. Even if you're treading water, you're still an entrepreneur. You're still learning, you're still growing, you're still moving forward. You may, that moving forward may be incremental, it may be microscopic, and other people may not even notice that you're moving forward, but you are. As long as you're learning, as long as you're evaluating, as long as you're challenging yourself, there's always progression, and there's always something to learn, whether things went well or when things go poorly. There's always something to learn. And the problem is people are not taking the time today to learn from both.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you said it is learning is, it's not failure until you do give up, but until then it's learning, and you're constantly getting better, because even in and it's tough to see that, I think in the beginning, especially with, your first few devastating failures or wake up calls or whatever it is, which will absolutely come along no matter what kind of business you're starting. But if you're not moving forward, if you're not learning, then you can't move forward. You won't ever. But that learning is what leads to the success ultimately. I mean, there's so many entrepreneurs out there who've created, massive things. Like, I mean, you look at, remember like the Colonel Sanders, the KFC
but look at the
guy.
failure that he had up to the time he succeeded.
Right. A lot of it, more than most people, I think, even most people who actually are successful, probably more than most, but still succeeded in the end. Jack Ma with Alibaba, I've heard that he went through a ton of failure before, really landing on the right thing. So yeah, that's what it's all about, learning in the meantime and then moving on.
Yeah. And I would add to that, as far as from my military experience, which what I pulled from that is the AAR, and that's the after action review. Taking a look at the failure, taking a look at what went right and what went wrong. And I think if you can take a team and have a team that you can do it internally too, right? And really be honest with yourself and take a look at it from a perspective of, okay, this happened, this didn't go great. Even if it goes great, you still have to look at it and examine how it could be better, right? Because just because you think it went great, somebody else's mind might be a disaster, or that it wasn't as overly successful as it could have been. But looking at all of those shortfalls and saying, okay, what was my role during this process? What was that my teammate's role, or whoever else had a hand in it, and learn from that. And okay, ask them, what did you see that, went good? What did you see that failed? What did you see where we can improve? And having those conversations and being honest about it really helps you get better and tightens up your shot group at the end of the day.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And second of all, most entrepreneurs need to take a lesson from the military. They truly do, because you're right. The AARs are something that you see everywhere, whether it's an elite fighting unit or whoever. There is constantly the debrief process. And whether things went well or things didn't go well, the question is, what could we have done better? And I think that it's not the pointing fingers, it's laying blame. It's how did we as a unit, how can we as a unit be better, and how can we be more effective as a unit, and how can we move forward as a unit? And, it's that type of mentality that goes from being a managerial mindset where it's your fault to it's our fault. And taking responsibility, that's one thing that most people as leaders don't get. When things go wrong, ultimately it's your fault. It may have been somebody else that actually executed the thing that caused the problem in the first place, the failure. But what did you not teach that person? What power, what tools did you not give that person? What method of communication did you not give that person that allowed them to succeed? And I think that those are the failures of a lot of businesses, are the failures of communication, the failures of leadership.
I love that you bring that up, because as a platoon leader in the military, it was more of, I'm 100% responsible. And I always had to tell people this, right? I'm 100% responsible for the successes and failures. I'm not saying that, okay, I did all this, right? It's not saying I did this, but if we succeed, the leadership's going to look at me, say congratulations, and then I give my guys a pat on the back and then say we got to continue to do this. And when we fail, we fall short, I'm the guy they turn around and look at, right?
You're the one coming up on the carpet.
And they bash. Yeah. And then they say, hey, what do you do, right? And it's one of those things. It's like I always wanted to put my guys in the right position and help us succeed, right? And it's the same way. It's the same way with entrepreneurship. You have to help yourself and put your company in the best position to succeed. And if you're not trying to find those ways to do that, you're failing yourself and the people that work with you.
I agree.
And it's a team effort at the end of the day. So everybody's got to get on the same page and realize, hey, let's not point fingers. We're all in this together. So let's criticize constructively what happened and then figure it out as a team and move on. But yeah, I think a lot of times there's this finger pointing thing that Ben, you mentioned, and it's not good because nobody ever learns. People just figure out ways to avoid, confrontation, and they just figure out ways to get around it and not work with those people who they feel that they can't trust and they can't, they can't grow with and learn from, and they feel like they can't make mistakes around, and that's a bad thing.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with confrontation. There's nothing wrong with disagreement. There's nothing wrong with having challenging the way things have happened. But as long as it's done within the unit, and as long as there's that code of silence, okay, we're going to disagree, but we're going to disagree amongst ourselves. And once we get out of this room, we're a cohesive unit. And, I'm not going to bash you. You're not going to bash me. We're not going to lay blame. We're not going to point fingers. Once we get out of this room, everybody's on the same page and everybody's talking the same points and everybody believes the same thing. And we're all moving together. You might have disagreed. I disagreed, but we took a vote and this is the way we're moving forward. And everybody's on the same page. And I think that good leaders bring that people out. They allow for that healthy disagreement. They allow for that conversation. They allow for the exchange of ideas and that, that confrontation at that level. But it doesn't have to be animosity. There's a difference between, confrontation where it solves problems and personal attacks. And I think that that's where the line in the sand has to be.
Yeah, I agree. So Ben, you say that leadership is a mindset and not a job title. And I'm sure you knew we'd ask about this, but can you explain what you mean by that? And what are the most basic qualities of a good leader? Maybe not qualities, but what are the basic components of a good leader?
I bring it down to a great leader wakes up every morning and says, how can I make my team better? What tools can I provide them? What training can I give them? What mentorship, what coaching, what inspiration can I give them to allow them to achieve their personal greatness? And it's understanding that the team is made up of individuals. Every single person comes to the team with a different set of skills, a different set of, aspirations, goals, things that they want to do. And it's a good leader who sits there and goes, okay, this is what my team needs. We don't have this in the team. Let's go find it. Or let's train somebody who's excited about this on how to be better at what they want to do. And I think that that's what a great leader does. I look at it and say the difference between leadership and managerial mindset. Simon Sinek said it best. And, I hate to, bring up other people's, viewpoints, but I think that this is the best way to explain it. Simon Sinek, when he starts with start with why, talks about the managerial and the leader, where the manager sees somebody who's been late 5 days in a row and goes up to them and says, listen, you've been late 5 days in a row. If you're late on day number 6, there's going to be consequences. The leader goes up to that same person and says, look, I noticed you've been late for 5 days in a row. Is everything okay? And that's the difference between seeing the person at the other side of the bench as a human being versus just another number. And I think that we need to get rid of the managerial mindset, whether that's a manager, whether it's a director, a vice president, a senior vice president, or a CEO. It's Do we treat our people like people? Do we realize that they all come to the office with their own wants, needs, fears, desires, passions, etc., and minutia, and we have to deal with them that way versus, saying, I don't care, I just need this job done. A good leader tells people what needs to happen and why, and lets the people go ahead and do it in their own way. A manager goes out and says, you're going to do this way, and I want this form filled out this way, and I need this done in triplicate, and goes through it step by step by step by step by step. It doesn't give their team the ability to be creative or to find a better way or to find a better solution. It's that mentality change, and the world needs leaders today. We certainly don't need managers. And if you have manager in your title, it's not that I'm belittling you. I'm just saying that you need to stop thinking like like your title and start thinking like a leader of people.
Yeah, I think you'll get way more out of people with that mindset, and empowering. I think what you were talking about too is empowering people to create, to come up with creative solutions for things. And when they feel invested in that way in what they're doing, it's going to make it more exciting for them. They're going to come up with ideas that might help the company. And it's just going to be a much better mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah. And I can't remember if it's Inc. said one and Forbes said the other. I believe Inc. magazine said that 70% of people pre-COVID were disengaged at the office. And I believe it was Forbes that said that 50% of people were either actively or inactively looking for another job. Either way, whether Forbes said one or Inc. said the other, those quotes basically mean that people are not passionate about their job. They don't feel listened to, they don't feel understood, and they certainly don't feel valued. And if they're not listened to, understood, and valued, they're certainly not going to be engaged. They're not going to want to grow with the company, and they're not going to become valuable members of the company. And because of that, customer experience is a failure. And when customer experience is a failure, companies go from being a brand worth loving to a commodity. It's low cost, it's low value, it's easily forgotten, and it's easily replaced.
Yeah. And I mean, I think as a leader, you have to show that you care. I mean, basically, that's what we're saying. Yeah. You have to bring that human emotion into it and show that individual or the team that you're working with, if you're that manager, right? That you are just not a manager, you are a leader of that team, and that you actually care about them. And then noticing, like you said, finding out the why they're being late, finding out the why, what is actually going on in their life that might be bringing them down. I mean, just having one simple conversation with somebody. And I mean, right now in the military, suicide is ridiculous, right? And so with COVID, suicides through the roof and stuff like that. So it's not slowing down. So it's just having that one simple, and we don't see this. A lot of people don't see this. Is if you just take 1 second, get out of your own way, show somebody that you actually care, ask them the why, talk to them just for a second. Even if you don't have the time, we always have a second, right? We always have a few minutes, but make sure you make enough time and make enough wiggle room to when you pass somebody, if you're in the office and you're passing somebody while they're getting coffee and you see that, you kind of see that they're off, ask them what's going on. Ask them, how are you doing today? Right? Just throw that icebreaker in, and just that simple notice, or that simple, like, hey, he actually is noticing me, or she's actually noticing me. Then that right there could change their whole mindset for the week, for the year, just going forward. And also giving them their, their due when it comes to noticing what they're actually doing for your company and the value that they bring, and telling them that, right? I think all of that right there cuts all the layers away and takes somebody that's a manager and takes them into being that leader that they need to be.
Yeah. And to bring some dollars and cents to this, because a lot of people that are going to listen to this are going to sit there and go, oh, well, that's nice to have, but you know what? Whatever. Let's bring some dollars and cents to this. Every employee that you lose costs you $100,000 to replace. So if you lose 10 people this year, that's $1 million off the bottom line. That's after tax dollars. wouldn't it be better to invest that $1 million? If you invested $500,000 or $250,000 in making your team better, on training, on listening, on promoting, on all the things that need to be done, and made your team more engaged and happier, the ROI is phenomenal. They say that, your brand is only as valuable as your unhappiest employee on their worst day. So if you've got a whole bunch of unhappy, surly employees that are just doing the minimum that they need to do to be able to gain a paycheck and go home and do what they really want to do, how valuable is your brand? How valuable are you to your customers? How many of your customers truly want to be around unhappy, surly employees? And 9 times out of 10, it's not just the fact that they're miserable, unhappy people. It's the fact that there's policies, procedures, communication, leadership that are ineffective and that are putting serious roadblocks in these people's way that keep them from being able to do what they really truly need to do to be able to help a customer. And it's frustration that leads to that unhappiness. And that's what causes companies to spiral.
Yeah. Yeah. And I as you're saying that, I'm thinking of the companies that do it right, like the Costco's of the world, where people are happy to help you. And even on the way out, they might have a little joke as you're leaving or something, just, makes you feel good about shopping at a place like that. Or they're just, taking in a time like this, they're taking safety precautions seriously, and they're just trying to keep everybody safe and distanced and, while they're shopping. So just there's a lot of thought that goes into making their experience much better. But at the same time, if you think about it, it's not that complicated. All the stuff they do isn't that complicated, but it is thoughtful. So, and they do figure that, that out with their employees. Obviously, you can tell in the way that they just help you and they just are as employees, so, and then I can also think of places where it's not on, customer service is not on point, and that probably comes from higher up, from the culture. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, it's all about it's lack of purpose, it's lack of culture, it's lack of communication. And to get back to your point, you're right. By Costco treating their employees right, by focusing on their purpose, by focusing on their policies and the procedures, and having that open communication with their employees, you're noticing as a customer. And that's where the end goal is, because you are wanting to spend your money at Costco instead of somewhere else because you see the value in it. And you see the value in it because you see that employees are being treated well.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, I think as a consumer, I enjoy spending money at a place that I know that the employees are being treated well. I was thinking about this today, if people are actually being paid livable wages, to work, even if it's, not a very skilled job, they can sort of almost turn it into a skilled job by just making the experience that much better. And that's not something everybody can do. And if they can do that, they should be able to be paid, a livable wage. And I think it helps. I like supporting businesses like that because it feels good. I think it makes sense. And it's also indicative of a sustainable business too, so.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be money. It can also be the fact that employees are empowered to try things. That employees are, employed to say, listen, we want you came up with this great idea. Great. I want you to form a task force on this. We're going to throw a limited amount of money at this thing. And we want to sit you test it and report back to us and let us know how it went. And, it doesn't cost a lot of money to create these things. A lot of times it's just getting people to do sweat equity. And if you get a bunch of people inside a company that are excited because there's a different direction, they'll try it. And they'll be able to say, hey, listen, if we did this, this is the results we got. Great. Now management has some, reason to throw some money behind it. And the employees feel that they're valued, that they've been listened to, that they're understood, that their opinion matters. I mean, I'm a big believer of the equation, people plus purpose equals profit. If you take care of your people and you have a strong purpose of your company and you articulate it and you live it, the profit comes.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly, man. I love that. So Ben, on your website, man, you state that your favorite trait is curiosity, which I thought was cool, right? And that it helps you understand the world around you and helps you understand the people that you actually serve. And when I saw that, I want to ask you this question about how important is it at this point, right, in time, with everything going on around us, how important is it to understand others? How important is it to understand their needs, their hopes, their aspirations and fears? And when is it our responsibility as entrepreneurs to devise solutions that make their lives better?
Always. First, last, always. Now it couldn't be any more critical because we're in a trust economy. We are an economy where your product or service or your provider could be next door or they could be halfway around the world. I do work in Australia. I do work in Europe. I do work throughout the United States and Canada. I've never met most of these people. The closest we come is Zoom calls on a regular basis. But it's a matter of trust. And the more companies can sit there and say, these are the people that we truly serve. Not everybody with a heartbeat, not everybody with a Visa card is my client. These are the 100 companies that we can serve. These are the 50 companies that we can serve. And we can serve them really, really well. And this is why. These are the problems that they have. These are the issues that they face. These are the challenges that they're having. And this is how our software, hardware, program, whatever, fixes that problem in a way that our competitors can't. Then you can build relationships and you can build trust and you can build, long-term value with your client. And the beautiful thing is those people will turn around and talk to another 20, 30, 40 companies that they deal with on a regular basis and say, listen, we go to Clint. Clint's amazing. He always listens to us. He's always inventive. He's creative. He helps us through solutions. He gets to the underlying issues and helps us solve our problems. You got this type of issue, you should go talk to Clint. And those conversations are worth millions and millions of dollars in Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads or Twitter tweets or whatever. That one conversation could be the difference between you going from a $500,000 business to a $5 million business, or a $5 million business to a $50 million business, because you've built that level of trust to a point where people look at you not only as a commodity, but they look at you as a partner, and a partner that they're going to sit there going, you know what? We deal with this company. We love this company. They take care of us. You should deal with them too. And the more curious we are about our customers, the more passionate we are about not understanding that they need this by 2:00, but why do they need this by 2:00? What are the underlying issues? What are the things that, once I drop this off at your front door, what happens to it? And how can we make that easier? Well, what if we didn't drop this off at your front door? This thing gets split to 4 or 5 different locations across the United States. What if we just drop ship them for you? What if we didn't have to bring them into your location? What if we carried some of your boxes in our office so you didn't have to repackage them and send them off? What if we packaged them in your boxes in our plant and we cross-dock them directly to your customers? So the bill of lading looks like it comes from you. They're blind shipped, but the customer gets them 3 days faster. And you don't have to cross-dock them and use your people to restock the product. And if you're asking those type of questions, all of a sudden you've completely differentiated yourself from your competitor, and you can charge more money for it because all of a sudden you got 5 drop ships you have to do. And they're more than happy to have you handle the 5 drop ships. So all of a sudden you become an integral partner into their business. And those are the questions that sales aren't asking, that marketing aren't asking, that ops aren't asking. We're not asking, how can we be a better vendor to you? What are the things that we can do to help you shine in the eyes of your client? And if we're asking those questions, all of a sudden we stop going from being one of many to one of one.
Yeah, I agree. The questions are so important. Asking questions, asking what can we do better? Do you have, is there anything else that would make this a better experience? If you know why something needs to be done, then like you said, you can figure out ways to make it even better. Say, hey, I'll do one even better. Now that I understand what the goal is, now I can actually, I'll do what you wanted, but I can also add this onto it. And, maybe it doesn't cost any more, or maybe it does, but it's so valuable to the client that, you make a little more money, they're happy, they're way happier, so yeah, that's so important, is to ask those questions. And just
or something as simple as your invoice comes into them on a monthly basis and it doesn't jive with their ERP. It doesn't jive with their accounting system. And if they're a $3, $5, $10 million customer to yours, and you need to spend an extra 10 minutes, formatting the invoice in a way that's going to make it easier for them, wouldn't you do it? But if you don't ask the question, you're never going to know, and you're going to keep throwing an invoice at them that's frustrating their accounting department, to a point where it's costing them money, and they're going to say, well, we don't want to deal with these people anymore because they're a havoc to our system. And all of a sudden you may be doing a great job, but if you're not invoicing it in such a way that makes it easy for them to be able to pay you, that becomes a major irritant. Even if you provide great customer service throughout the whole process, all the way up to delivery, and then you go do the accounting and you're frustrating their accounting department, those people will complain. And eventually they're going to look for somebody else who can do the same thing you can do, but is going to make their accounting department stop whining. Sure.
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of that with vendors and getting invoices that, like for one order, get like 10 invoices. Yeah. And it's like, why did you do that? It's one order. Yeah, there were, you could break it up into a bunch of different little things, but we didn't ask for that, and we prefer not. And then it becomes, then they're not very helpful to resolve that.
Yeah.
And it's like so frustrating. So
because it works better for their system.
Right. Exactly.
It's really simple. It's better for their system. Right. So therefore, that's why they've set it up that way.
Right.
For their inventory management or whatever, they've set it up for them. And we need to stop running our businesses so it's better for us. We need to sit there and say, is our policies and procedures making us ineffective or not as valuable to our customers? And the same question is to our internal customers. What policies and procedures do we have inside the company that are creating havoc and creating people to get frustrated? So we need to be constantly looking at that, going, why do we do what we do, and how do we do it better? I mean, now is the perfect time to re-onboard every single employee. To sit there and say, what are the sacred cows that we have within the company that no longer make sense? What are the policies and procedures, communication methods, whatever, that we've been doing forever that no longer make sense? What are things that we've learned over the last 6 months that make all the sense in the world that we can bring into our standard procedures?
Yeah. Standard operating procedures have to be flexible, right? I mean, when you look at it, you have to be willing to change them when they don't work.
Yeah. And evaluate them.
Yeah. And when you sit there and create them in a vacuum, create them in a bubble, or whoever it is, right? You designate somebody to do it, or you do it as a leader to have this thing go through, and you're like, oh man, that worked out perfect. How about you create the steps that worked for you during this process? Just because it worked for them, though, doesn't mean it's going to work for Susan or Karen or Thomas, right? They might have to tweak it, but they have something. They don't have to recreate the wheel. All they say is, okay, well, steps 1 through 4 make sense to me, but I cannot do it step 5 and 6. So you got to be able to refine it to them so that it can play to their strengths. And 2, if it also will help better the SOPs that you've originally created anyways, it might need to change, because you're trying to look for a unifying way that works for everybody. But again, people's minds are different, right? We learn differently. But at the end of the day, you always need those established too, because there are so many companies right now that you get into. There's no standard operating procedures. There's no book. It's almost like the OJT, right? You get thrown in this job, you have to figure it out. And that's frustrating as crap to me. So when I was in the military, it was like, you have to have established this book, because it was every time I fell into a position, and I don't know what it is outside of that to have a job now, right? Outside of me being an entrepreneur. So I can't really refer to anything outside of me being here, but standard operating procedures, even in my digital marketing agency, is huge, right? So I can say, okay, this is how I do things. And this is how I want you to kind of like, no, I'm not dictating them to be done that way, but these are the standard operating procedures that help me. So I'm going to pass this over to you. And if you can implement these too, that'd be great, because I could kind of know your train of thought, right? And if you adjust, that's fine. Just communicate that with me as a leader, so I could kind of know, okay, you kind of veered off from step 5 through 10. So kind of like just back brief me and let me know how did you get this end result? Because every time I did it through the standard operating procedures, we never like had a problem, right? And so it's not me jumping down on them and just condemning them for messing up, but it's more of learning together, so they could kind of understand and see why I did it. And they're like, okay, well, that makes sense now that you kind of explained it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the why behind the SOPs is important. And also the fact is that, standard operating procedures cannot be written in a boardroom. They need to be written by the people who are actually doing the job. People who have been doing the job, who sit there and say, yeah, well, we did this, and this is why it was, why we don't do that anymore. And this is, and almost having those things in the SOPs as addendums and say, listen, we tried this, these were the things that came out of this, and this is the challenge that came out of it. And this is why we don't do it anymore. Almost to have some historical data, because, 2 years later, you're still going to remember. 5, 10 years later, you're not going to remember. You're not going to remember why you do something or why you didn't do something. And having that historical knowledge, especially when all the people have moved on, who created that thing to begin with, you need to sit there and say, okay, well, wait a second, we want to do this. Well, wait a second, we tried that. Well, technology's changed. Okay, great. Technology's changed. Let's try it again. And let's see if we're going to replicate it differently based on technology changes. So it's being able to sit there and say, how can we do things better? Let's try it. Let's document it. Let's make sure it works. And if it does work, we understand why it works and what the end result is. What is the end goal we're trying to achieve? And make sure we write SOPs with an end goal in mind.
Yeah, exactly. So Ben, a little while ago, you were talking about how this is a great time, to kind of reevaluate as a business. We've been going through a lot recently with COVID, and a lot of businesses have had to scramble and adjust how they serve their customers. Do you see any differences with how organizations should be led pre-COVID versus post-COVID, or now in the middle of COVID?
Well, I mean, and I created a series of podcasts, and they're on my website at theyourbrandmarketing.com. We did 2 podcasts. One with Claire Chandler, who I believe you had on your show, and it's come, and Claire and I wrote a book that's coming out in August called Leading Beyond a Crisis that gets into all this. Leadership has changed in the fact that when COVID came, everybody was thrown into crisis mode. We threw duct tape and Band-Aids on everything. 99% of the people who call themselves leaders were flying by the seat of their pants. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what was next. Nobody knew how long we were sending people home, or how to send people home, or how to communicate effectively, or how to lead a remote team, or what technology to use. There was a million things that came up in March. I have stories of companies implementing a 90,000 person Teams environment in less than a week. You don't do that. You just don't do that. But they had to. They absolutely had to. And the security keys and everything that went along with it to be able to ensure that people were able to communicate effectively and business was able to go on, whether people were home or not. Moving forward, you're going to have a situation where there's going to be a series of people that are going to want to stay home, and and it's going to make sense for the company to keep them at home. Some people are going to have to come back to the office or want to come back to the office, and some people are going to stay home some time. Some people are going to, and that's going to lead to a difference in leadership. How we communicate, how we do meetings, how we engage people, how we make sure we listen to people, how we make sure that different people's opinions get heard, how people are engaged, how people are motivated. There's a whole series of things that are going to happen as we become more and more of a remote workforce. And also the thought process comes up of, I don't have to hire somebody just because my office is in Oklahoma, that I have to have employees in Oklahoma. I can sit there and say, okay, I can hire a digital team in LA. I can hire a customer service team in Madison, Wisconsin, because that's what makes sense. And we need to start thinking that just because this is the way we've always done things doesn't mean that's the way things always have to be. And we need to start thinking that way to realize that the world has changed. And there's things that we did before that still make a lot of sense. There's things that we did before that make absolutely no sense now whatsoever. And there's things that we did during the crisis mode that, some of them we just did because we had to do them. And we need to sit there and say, no, those do not become habits. Those are things that we did, and now it's time to move beyond them. And there's certain things we said, hey, wait a second, that was a good idea. Maybe we need to incorporate that into our new standard procedures. And through all this, the most important thing is that the brand story gets modified. Because we need to get rid of, as companies, get rid of mission, vision, value statements and turn them into a brand story. It's not the mission, vision, value statements on their own that I have a problem with. I have a problem that they're not lived, that they're not remembered, that they're not, they're not incorporated into the way of life of organizations. And if we could take the values that the mission, vision, value statements create, incorporate those into a story that says, this is where we were, this is where we are, this is what we learned along the way, this is who we serve, this is why we serve them, this is why people care about us, this is where we're going. And have that story in such a way that every single employee knows that story and can recall it and retell it, that becomes powerful. And that's what we really need to work on as organizations, is to have that common language, that common story, that common history that goes beyond the day that everybody is onboarded. Because if you tell the story once and then it's forgotten, it's never lived, and it's never becomes part of a meeting, it never becomes part of decision-making, it's a waste of time. But if that story becomes part of, wait a second, why are we doing this? How does that relate to our brand story? How does this decision move our story forward? Then we're better off as organizations.
100% agree.
That makes sense. Absolutely.
So Ben, through your entrepreneurial journey, man, from the highs to the lows, brother, what has been the most difficult thing to date about being an entrepreneur?
I mean, there's lots of things that, that are difficult about being an entrepreneur. I mean, I don't know an entrepreneur out there that has not looked at their bank account at the end of a month and said, am I going to be able to pay bills? I don't care. I'm sure Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm sure Richard Branson, I'm sure Bill Gates, anybody that you can think of had 1 month somewhere in their life where they looked at their bank account and said, can I cover the cost this month? Do we have enough run rate to be able to, to survive this? And I think that every single person did. I started Your Brand Marketing January 5th, 2008. If you can think of a dumber time to start a company, I can't think of, maybe during COVID. I mean, but you know what? There's lots of businesses that are being started during COVID.
Yeah,
I was lucky enough that my clients came with me. The email that I sent on January 5th, 2008 was brand new name, same great service. And 90% of my customers came with me. And it was based on trust. It was based on relationship. It was based on the fact that they knew I was going to take care of them. And they carried me on their shoulders for the first 18 months. They truly did. The customers that came with me carried me on their shoulders. They paid their bills on time. They worked with me. They figured out how we could make all this happen. Their budgets were slashed. I worked with them to be able to be more creative with the budgets that they had left. And long-term relationships were cemented. So there's lots of challenging things of being an entrepreneur. The most challenging thing is that when you sit there and say, I'm going to figure this all out by myself, and I'm not going to involve anybody. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to put my head down and I'm going to plow through this. Any good entrepreneur's got to find people that they trust to have the conversations with and say, listen, you've probably been here. What did you do? And be able to have those mentors, to be able to have those coaches, to be able to have those trusted advisors that have been down that road, that have got the battle scars, the video and the T-shirt, and be able to sit there and say, you know what, I don't know all the answers. I'm not all knowing. I'm not all seeing. Can you help me? And I think that's a humbling experience for anybody who's an entrepreneur. But I think that's what makes a good entrepreneur great.
Yeah, we're not doing this on our own. We shouldn't be, even if we are a solopreneur, and we're really, for the most part, we're making a lot of the decisions ourselves, or all of the major decisions ourselves. We still need people to be a sounding board at a very minimum, So I think that's super important to have a mentor, have a friend or somebody, especially somebody who's been there and done it the way that you want to do it. That's amazing. And yeah, I'm sure those entrepreneurs you mentioned, any of them who only had 1 month where they were scared, that was that wouldn't actually be that bad if it was only one. But
sure. So, I'm envisioning the ostrich, right? Ostrich that puts his head in the dirt. You got to take it out. You can't just put your head in the dirt and just stay there.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. So Ben, as we wrap up this episode, what is one piece of advice that you think that our audience could benefit from?
I think the biggest piece of advice I give to any entrepreneur, and I think this is 4 or 5 times a year, I go up to the universities and I talk to their business students, and I talk to them about entrepreneurship. I talk to them about networking and, how to communicate more effectively. And I think that the most thing I can say is be authentically you. Know who you are, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. Surround yourself with people that are way smarter than you are, and don't have an ego about it. This is a lonely experience. Being an entrepreneur is a very lonely experience, because there's very few people you can let in and let everybody know exactly what's happening and how it's happening and when it's happening. Because, there's certain things that you just need to keep to yourself and keep to your chest. But the more things that you can let certain people in and have people that you can trust and people that you can talk to, that become either a board of advisors or, a mentor or a coach or someone that you can sit there and say, what do you think? Your life becomes much better. But you need to sit there and, running your company as an entrepreneur, you need to know, why did I start the company in the first place? What am I passionate about? What am I good at? Where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? And be able to surround yourself with people that have a similar mindset, but different skill sets. And I think that that's how we all succeed.
I love that. And especially putting your ego aside. I think that's very important.
Very huge. Well, guys, that's a wrap for this episode. And from the both of us, Ben, we want to thank you for taking the time into your day, man, to join us and adding value to what we're trying to do on our podcast.
Andrew and Clint, this has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you guys very much. Thank you for all you're doing. Thanks to your listeners for listening in. And I hope that everybody has an incredible entrepreneurial journey.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's been great to have you on, Ben. Guys, thank you so much for listening to That Entrepreneur Life. To learn more about what Ben is working on, check out leadersmadehere.com. If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or any other major podcast directory. You can also find us on all the socials and on our website at thatentrepreneurlife.com.
With that said, guys, we also want to quickly give a special shout out to our family and friends, like always, to include all of our listeners, our followers, and subscribers. If you find value in our show, guys, please consider making a small donation. Even just a few dollars helps us keep things moving along and brings value to your entrepreneurial journey. Thanks for continuing to support what we do as entrepreneurs. And don't forget, guys, to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.